When installing decks, you should always use screws, never use nails. The problem with nails is they're very quick for the installer, but what they will do is damage the surface of the timber, and you could end up having splinters from it. It looks unattractive. They need to be stainless steel screws. And the other point to consider is that if you're building with softwood and using softwood deck boards, then the softwood deck boards will expand and contract with the weather, and that will work the nails loose. Whereas if you're using stainless screws, always use stainless screws, then the stainless screws will hold the board fast and it won't allow the board to move, whereas nails will allow the board to actually move over a period of time. Yes, you can install your own decking, and we do have a number of customers that try and build their own deck, and we supply the material for it. But the time you've costed in your time in planning out how you're going to build it, what sort of structural framework you need and how much you need, it's sometimes a lot simpler to just have a professional company that is used to doing this all the time, providing you check their portfolio and understand that they are more than capable of building your project. It would be a lot better for you to use a professional company going forward. General spacing between deck boards, certainly with timber deck boards, and to be fair, composite boards as well, we would always recommend about 5mm gap between each one. So it's not enough for dropping pencils and the like through, but it allows the water to drain. And if you're using a softwood, then it allows that board. Sometimes you may want to make that spacing slightly bigger at 6mm if the boards are prone to expanding, contracting. But if you're using a decent quality material, decent quality deck board, then the expansion and contraction should be minimal, in which case a 5mm gap would be more than adequate. Depends on the type of finish you're looking for. If you're happy to have screws visible on the surface, then you need to be accurate about how you install those screws, and they all need to be pre-drilled and kept in line. Generally the screws would be an inch in from the outer edge of the deck board, whereas you don't have to worry about that when you're using a hidden clip system, because you can put the clips wherever it crosses the joist and screw down. So therefore most people these days want to have a deck that doesn't have any fixings visible. It makes the project a lot quicker, it looks a lot cleaner and neater, and we would always advise going down that route as opposed to face fixing. We would never advise on nailing a decking framework together. You generally find this, people have nail guns. That's fine for nailing together framework that is, or structure, softwood structure that is interior, like roofing structures and things like that. That's fine because it's not affected by the elements. But with a deck framework that is subjected to all sorts of weather and conditions, then you need to make sure that that framework is properly held together and does not twist and move over a period of time. And nails do not do that. You're better off using proper structural screws, rugged structural screws, wherever it's appropriate, so that you make sure that the framework is properly held together and you have noggins in various intervals so that it's locked up as a complete grid. The main things to consider with a subframe is the longevity. So there's no harm in building with structural softwood, but the points you need to remember when building with softwood is that you don't sit it on the ground, so it needs to have air movement underneath the structural framework, so it's kept off the ground. All the cut ends need to be treated with a wood preserver, which is a very simple process. Every time you're cutting the framework, you just brush it on the end seal onto the end of the timber. That protects the timber. You need to make sure that the framework is structurally large enough, so always go with as large a structure as you can have, because that gives you a slightly larger span. So if you went for a 6 by 2 framework, then you can span that a lot further. You can span it up to 2.5 meters sensibly, whereas if you had a 4 by 2 or a 3 by 2 framework, then it would need a lot more supports to stop it from flexing.